Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at the stars. His 4 eyes could see things that most beings could not. He could see the energy patterns of distant suns. He could see the small movements of space dust between the planets. Most importantly, he could see victory coming toward him like a wave. The bridge around him was alive. The walls moved slowly like they were breathing. Tubes filled with green liquid carried messages from one part of the ship to another. The floor under his feet felt warm and soft. This was because his ship was not made of metal like the ships of lesser beings. His ship was grown. It was alive. It could think and heal and change itself when needed. The Zephyrian hegemony had been conquering worlds for over 100 years. Kethver had been part of this great work for 30 years. In that time, he had seen 17 different star systems fall to their power. 17 different kinds of aliens had learned to bow before the might of the hegemony. Some of these aliens had tried to fight. The rock-skinned people of Vega Prime had built huge fortresses that could withstand any attack. The hegemony's bioships had simply grown new kinds of acid that ate through the strongest stone in days. The crystal beings of the Tau system had created energy shields that could stop any weapon. The bioships had adapted by growing organs that could drain energy and use it to make themselves stronger. This was the secret of hegemony victory. Their ships were not just machines. They were living things that could learn and change. When they met a new enemy, they would study how that enemy fought. Then they would grow new parts to counter every weapon and every defense. No species had ever found a way to beat this advantage. Kethver's flagship was called the Devouring Maw. It was 3 miles long and shaped like a great sea creature from his homeworld. Its skin was dark green and covered with small holes that could open to reveal weapons or sensors. Along its sides were rows of smaller openings, where fighter craft could emerge like angry insects from a nest. The ship's mind spoke to him through the neural link in his skull. The voice was calm and female, though the ship itself had no gender. Admiral, we are approaching the target system. All fleet elements report ready for conquest operation. Kethver touched a control surface that felt like warm skin. Around him, holographic displays showed the position of his fleet. 200 ships moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was unique because each had grown differently, based on its experiences in battle. Some were long and thin like spears. Others were wide and flat like shields. A few had grown so many weapon pods that they looked like floating cities of death. Show me the intelligence reports on the target. Species, Kethver said. The air in front of him shimmered and formed into images. He saw a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet was the third one from its sun, which the locals called Sol. The dominant species called themselves humans. Basic chemical rocket propulsion, the ship's mind reported. Metal. Hull construction using primitive alloys. Kinetic weapons based on explosive acceleration of solid projectiles. Social structure shows multiple competing governments with frequent conflict between them. Kethver studied the images of human technology. Their ships were simple metal tubes with chemical rockets at one end. Their weapons shot pieces of metal using controlled explosions. Their largest military vessels were barely 1/10 the size of his smallest destroyer. Estimated time to conquest? He asked. Based on analysis of their technology and social structure, complete subjugation should require no more than 3 local solar rotations. The species shows signs of internal conflict which will aid in their defeat. Kethver allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 3 days to conquer an entire star system. It would be one of their fastest victories ever. The humans might even surrender without a real fight once they saw the power of the hegemony fleet. He walked to another part of the bridge, where his tactical officers were working. These were younger members of his species, chosen for their skill in analyzing enemy weaknesses. Their commander was Subadmiral Cyranoth, a brilliant tactician who had helped plan the conquests of 4 different worlds. Cyranoth, what is your assessment of human military capability? Kethver asked. The younger officer touched his console and data flowed through the air around them. The humans appear to be in an early stage of technological development, Admiral. They have only recently achieved the ability to travel between planets in their own system. Their weapons are crude, and their ships are vulnerable to any serious attack. Do they have any advantages we should be aware of? Only one that might be significant. Intelligence suggests they have some skill at electronic warfare and communication networks. However, this is meaningless against our biotechnology. Their electronic systems cannot adapt like our living ships can. Kethver nodded. Every species had some small advantage. The important thing was that none of them had ever been enough to stop the hegemony. The rock people had been strong. The crystal beings had been able to manipulate energy. The gas dwellers of the nebula cluster had been incredibly fast. All of them now served the hegemony or were extinct. Show me their defensive positions. He commanded. New images appeared showing the space around the human homeworld. There were some artificial structures orbiting the planet, but they were clearly not military. The humans had built stations for manufacturing and research, but no serious fortifications. Their military ships were scattered throughout the system with no apparent coordination. They do not even have a unified defense plan, Cyranoth observed. Each human nation keeps its own military forces separate from the others. When we attack, they will waste time trying to coordinate instead of responding effectively. This was even better than Kethver had hoped. A divided enemy was the easiest kind to defeat. The hegemony would simply attack multiple targets at once, and watch the humans panic as they tried to help each other. Prepare the fleet for final approach, Kethver ordered. All ships are to maintain adaptive readiness, but I do not expect we will need to make major changes to face this enemy. The bridge became busy as his orders were relayed throughout the fleet. On screens around him, Kethver could see the other ships in his armada. The sight never failed to fill him with pride. Each vessel was a masterpiece of bioengineering, grown over years from the genetic templates of creatures that had evolved to be perfect killers. The destroyers looked like giant squids with their weapon tentacles trailing behind them. The cruisers resembled manta rays, their wide bodies hiding massive energy projectors. The battleships were like space whales, enormous and powerful enough to crack the crust of a planet. And supporting them all were thousands of smaller craft. Fighter squadrons that could be launched from any ship when needed. Boarding pods that could cut through any hull and disgorge warriors to capture enemy vessels. Survey drones that could analyze any technology and transmit the information back to the fleet so the ships could adapt. Admiral, we are receiving long-range sensor data from our scout ships, reported the sensor officer. The human fleet appears to be moving to intercept us at the edge of their system. How many ships? Kethver asked. 12 vessels, Admiral. All appear to be military craft, though they are much smaller than our estimates suggested they would build. Kethver felt a moment of confusion. 12 ships to face his fleet of 200? Either the humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, probably stupid. Most species did not understand the true power of the hegemony until it was too late. Are there any other human forces moving to support them? No, sir. Our long-range scans show no other military vessels in the system. These 12 ships appear to be their entire response to our arrival. 12 ships, Kethver repeated softly. He had conquered worlds that sent hundreds of ships against him. The crystal beings had managed to field over 1,000 vessels for their final battle, and the humans were sending 12. Perhaps they are hoping to negotiate, suggested Cyranoth. Some species attempt to buy time by pretending they want to discuss terms of surrender. No, Kethver said. Our intelligence report suggests humans are proud and aggressive. They will fight even when they cannot win. It is a weakness that will make our victory easier. He moved to the central command platform where he could address his entire fleet. When he spoke, his words would be carried to every ship through the bio-neural network that connected all hegemony vessels. Warriors of the hegemony, he began. We stand at the edge of another great victory. The species that calls this system home thinks they can resist us with 12 primitive ships. They will learn the same lesson that 17 other species have learned before them. Adaptation is the key to survival, and we are the masters of adaptation. Around him, the bridge crew made the ritual response. Their voices joined together in a sound that was part war cry and part religious chant. The hegemony adapts. The hegemony conquers, the hegemony endures. Prepare for engagement, Kethver commanded. But do not expect this to take long. We have faced far greater challenges than anything these humans can present. The fleet began to spread out into attack formation. Each ship found its assigned position with the precision that came from years of experience. The smaller vessels moved to the flanks where they could quickly respond to any unexpected enemy tactics. The larger ships formed the center of the formation, their massive weapons ready to deal with any serious threat. Kethver felt the familiar excitement that came before every conquest. Soon he would add another star system to the hegemony's territory. Soon another species would learn to serve their new masters or face extinction. The pattern had been repeated 17 times before, and it would be repeated again now. The human ships were still approaching, apparently unaware that they were flying toward their own destruction. Kethver almost felt sorry for them. They had no way of knowing what they were facing. In just a few hours, their civilization would be over, and their planet would belong to the hegemony. It would be the easiest conquest in the history of the fleet. The human ships appeared on the sensors like small dots of light against the darkness of space. Admiral Kethver studied them from his command platform while his tactical officers worked to analyze what they were seeing. The 12 vessels moved in a tight formation, their metal hulls reflecting the light from the distant sun. Range to target? Kethver asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Admiral, replied the sensor officer. The human ships are maintaining their current course. They will intercept our fleet in approximately 47 minutes. Kethver examined the tactical display that floated in the air before him. The human ships were arranged in a pattern that looked almost like a flower, with one larger vessel in the center and the others spread around it in a circle. It was an unusual formation, but then again, most primitive species had strange ideas about space combat. What can our biosensors tell us about their ships? He asked. Sub-Admiral Siranoth touched his control surface and new information flowed across the displays. The vessels appear to be constructed primarily of steel and titanium. Alloys, we can detect chemical propulsion systems and what look like kinetic weapon systems. The largest ship is approximately 800 meters in length, Kethver nodded. 800 meters was barely larger than his smallest escort vessel. The devouring maw was over 4,000 meters long, and some of the battleships in his fleet were even bigger. The humans were bringing toys to fight against real warships. Any signs of energy shields or advanced defensive systems? Negative, Admiral. We detect only basic armor plating and some kind of electronic countermeasure systems. Nothing that our weapons cannot easily penetrate? Electronic countermeasures, Kethver repeated. Interesting. Most species try to develop energy shields or advanced armor when they first encounter superior technology. The humans seem to think their primitive computers can somehow help them. The bridge crew shared what passed for laughter among their species, a series of clicking sounds made with their mandibles. Electronic warfare was useless against bioships because living vessels did not rely on computer systems the way mechanical ships did. The humans were preparing to fight the wrong kind of enemy. Sir, we are receiving transmissions from the human ships, reported the communications officer. Put it through the translators, Kethver ordered, the ship's bio-neural systems. Quickly analyzed the human language and converted it into something the hegemony crew could understand. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in what their computers identified as the dominant human language called English. Unidentified fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. You are entering restricted space around the Sol system. State your intentions immediately or you will be considered hostile. Kethver was amused by the boldness in the human's voice. Here was a member of a primitive species giving orders to the greatest military force in the galaxy. It was like a small insect threatening a giant predator. "Open a channel," he commanded. "Channel open, Admiral." Kethver spoke slowly and clearly, allowing the ship's systems to translate his words into the human language. "I am Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Your system and all worlds within it now belong to the Hegemony. Surrender immediately, and your species will be allowed to serve us. Resist, and you will be destroyed." There was a pause before the human responded. When Admiral Chun spoke again, her voice carried what sounded like amusement. "I see, and exactly how many species have fallen for that line before us?" The question surprised Kethver. "Most species either immediately surrendered or began making threats of their own. Very few asked about the Hegemony's previous conquests. 17 star systems have learned to serve the Hegemony. You will be the 18th. 17. That's an impressive number," the human admiral said. "Tell me, did any of those 17 species have quantum-entangled communication networks?" Kethver felt a small chill run through his body. Quantum-entangled communication was advanced technology, far beyond what their intelligence reports had suggested the humans possessed, but it was probably just a bluff. Primitive species often claimed to have technology they did not really understand. "Your attempts at deception will not save you," he replied. "Prepare to be boarded or be destroyed." "I wasn't trying to deceive you, Admiral," the human said. "I was trying to warn you. But I suppose some lessons have to be learned the hard way." The communication channel closed. Kethver stared at the tactical display, feeling slightly less certain than he had a few minutes earlier. There had been something in the human's voice that bothered him. She had sounded too confident for someone facing impossible odds. "Cyranoth, deploy the 23rd Wing to eliminate the human ships," he ordered. "I want this finished quickly." "Yes, Admiral." 30 bioships separated from the main fleet and began moving toward the human formation. These were some of the fastest vessels in the Hegemony Navy, designed for quick strikes against lightly defended targets. Each ship was about the size of the largest human vessel but far more advanced. Their living hulls could adapt to any weapon used against them, and their bioplasma weapons could melt through the strongest armor. Kethver watched as the wing formed into an attack pattern. The ships moved like a school of predatory fish, their movements coordinated by the bioneural network that connected all Hegemony vessels. In minutes, they would be close enough to open fire, and the human resistance would be over. "Admiral, the human ships are changing formation," reported the sensor officer on the tactical display. Kethver could see the 12 human vessels beginning to move, but they were not running away as he had expected. Instead, they were spreading out and adjusting their positions with a precision that seemed almost impossible for mechanical ships. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" Cyranoth asked, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "Unknown. Their movements suggest some kind of advanced command and control system, but our sensors do not detect the kind of energy signatures we would expect from such technology." Kethver studied the human formation more carefully. Each ship seemed to know exactly where every other ship would be at any given moment. They moved together like parts of a single organism, but that should have been impossible for beings who relied on electronic communication systems. "Wing Commander Thexkar reports ready to engage," the communications officer announced. "Tell him to proceed with the attack," Kethver ordered. The bioships of the 23rd Wing opened fire at maximum range. Streams of bioplasma erupted from their weapon pods, creating bright lines of energy that reached across the darkness toward the human ships. At the same time, they launched living torpedoes that would seek out the enemy vessels and burrow through their hulls. Kethver expected to see the human ships scatter in panic or attempt some desperate evasive maneuvers. Instead, something happened that he had never seen before in 30 years of warfare. The human ships moved in perfect unison, each vessel adjusting its position by exactly the right amount to avoid the incoming fire. It was not random evasion or lucky guessing. Every ship seemed to know precisely where every plasma bolt and torpedo would be, and they simply were not there when the weapons arrived. "Impossible," Cyranoth whispered. No biological or mechanical reaction time could be fast enough for that level of coordination. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. The human ships fired back. At first, Kethver thought his sensors were malfunctioning. The readings showed projectiles moving at velocities that should have been impossible for chemical propulsion systems. But as he watched, 6 of his bioships simply ceased to exist. They did not explode or break apart. They were there one moment, and gone the next, as if something had erased them from reality. "Report?" he shouted. The sensor officer's voice was shaking. "Admiral, the human projectiles appear to be traveling at approximately 15% of light speed. The kinetic energy release upon impact is equivalent to antimatter explosions." "That's impossible. Chemical rockets cannot achieve those velocities." "Sir, I am reading massive electromagnetic field generators on the human ships. They appear to be using magnetic acceleration to propel their projectiles to relativistic speeds." Kethver felt his world beginning to shift around him. The humans were not using primitive chemical weapons. They were firing projectiles at speeds that turned simple pieces of metal into planet-killing weapons. No armor in the galaxy could withstand that kind of kinetic energy. "Wing Commander Thexkar, report your status," he commanded. The reply came through static and interference. "Admiral, we have lost 6 ships to enemy fire. Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Requesting permission to withdraw and analyze their technology." "Negative. Continue the attack, adapt and overcome." "Sir, our bioships are attempting to adapt, but the enemy weapons create complete molecular disruption on impact. There is nothing left to analyze." On the tactical display, Kethver watched as more of his ships vanished under the impossible accurate fire from the human vessels. The bioships were trying to adapt, growing thicker armor and energy-absorbing tissues, but nothing could withstand the relativistic impacts. And still the human ships moved with that terrifying precision, as if they could see the future and know exactly where every shot would be fired. "Admiral," Cyranoth said quietly, "I am detecting something unusual about the human communication." "Patterns? What do you mean?" "The ships are exchanging data at quantum speeds through what appears to be entangled particle networks. But the volume of information being transferred is enormous, far beyond what should be needed for basic coordination." Kethver studied the sensor readings more carefully. The humans were indeed using quantum communication, but they were transmitting vast amounts of data between their ships every microsecond. It was as if all 12 vessels were sharing the same consciousness. "Wing Commander, all ships withdraw immediately," he ordered. "Admiral, we have lost 18 ships. The remaining 12 are heavily damaged. The enemy has suffered no casualties." 18 ships destroyed in less than 10 minutes by an enemy they had thought was primitive. Kethver had never experienced anything like it in his entire career. The humans had not just fought back effectively. They had dominated the engagement completely. "Sir, the human ships are transmitting again," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." Admiral Chun's voice filled the bridge again, and this time there was no mistaking the tone. She sounded like a predator that had just tasted blood. "Admiral Kethver, I hope that demonstration was educational. Those were our patrol ships, not our main battle fleet. If you would like to continue this engagement, we would be happy to show you what human warships are really capable of. Or you can withdraw now and tell your superiors that humanity is not interested in joining your little empire." The channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Kethver stared at the tactical display where the 12 human ships held position, waiting. They had just destroyed 8 of his vessels without taking any damage, and they were calling it a demonstration. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kethver began to understand what fear felt like. Admiral Kethver stood frozen on his command platform, staring at the tactical display. The 12 human ships held their position like silent guardians, waiting for his next move. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to understand what had just happened to their fleet. "Analysis complete, Admiral," Cyranoth reported, his voice tight with disbelief. The human projectiles were simple iron rods accelerated to 14.7% of light speed. At that velocity, each projectile carried the kinetic energy equivalent of a 50 megaton antimatter warhead. Iron rods, Kethver repeated. Slowly, they destroyed 18 of our ships with pieces of metal. Yes, sir. But it is not the projectiles themselves that are remarkable, it is the acceleration method. Our sensors detected magnetic field fluctuations of unprecedented strength and precision. The humans have somehow miniaturized particle accelerator technology to fit on their ships. Kethver tried to process this information. Particle accelerators were massive installations that most species built on planets or large space stations. The idea that the humans could make them small enough to mount on warships was terrifying. It meant their technology was far more advanced than anyone had believed possible. What about their coordination? He asked. How did they achieve such perfect timing? The sensor officer looked up from his console, his 4 eyes wide with fear. Admiral, we have been monitoring their quantum communication network since the engagement began. The data streams are unlike anything in our databases. Explain. Each human ship is transmitting approximately 10 to the 18th power bits of information per second to every other ship in their formation. That is more data than most planetary communication networks handle in a full rotation cycle. Kethver felt a chill run through his body. 10 to the 18th power was a number so large it was difficult to comprehend. It suggested that the human ships were not just communicating with each other. They were sharing their entire consciousness. Show me the data analysis, he commanded. Holographic displays materialized around the bridge, showing complex patterns of quantum entanglement between the human vessels. The information flows looked like a 3-dimensional web, with each ship connected to every other ship by streams of data moving at the speed of light. Sir, based on this communication pattern, I do not believe we are facing 12 separate ships, the sensor officer said quietly. I believe we are facing 12 bodies controlled by a single distributed intelligence. The bridge fell silent except for the soft sounds of the ship's biological systems. Kethver stared at the data patterns, trying to understand what he was seeing. A distributed intelligence meant that the human ships were like parts of one enormous brain. Each vessel could think and act independently, but they also shared all their thoughts and experiences instantly with every other ship. That would explain their coordination, Sironov said. If all 12 ships share the same consciousness, they would move together perfectly because they would essentially be one organism. But how is such a thing possible? Kethver asked. Even our bio-neural networks cannot achieve that level of integration. Unknown, Admiral. This technology is beyond our current understanding. Kethver moved to another console and accessed the Hegemony's intelligence database. He pulled up files on every species they had encountered, searching for any mention of distributed intelligence or networked consciousness. The search came back negative. In over 100 years of expansion, the Hegemony had never encountered anything like what the humans had created. Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet, the communications officer announced. Put it through. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge again. This time she sounded almost friendly, like she was having a casual conversation instead of threatening the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Admiral Kethver, I hope you are taking this time to analyze what you just witnessed. I imagine your sensors are quite confused by our communication systems. Kethver decided to be direct. What are you? We are human beings, Admiral. The same species your intelligence reports described as primitive and divided. But we have made some changes since your scouts gathered that information. What kind of changes? We learned to think together. Every ship in our fleet is crewed by humans who have linked their minds through quantum neural interfaces. We share our thoughts, our experiences, our reactions, and our decisions. When you fight one of our ships, you fight all of our ships. When you destroy one of us, the others learn instantly from our death. The implications hit Kethver like a physical blow. The humans had created a hive mind, but one that preserved individual consciousness while allowing perfect coordination. It was the ultimate evolution of military technology. "How many ships do you have?" he asked. "In this system?" "Just these 12 patrol vessels. But we have been very busy since we detected your approach, Admiral. Would you like to see?" Before Kethver could respond, new contacts began appearing on his sensors. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of objects emerging from behind. Planets, asteroids, and even the sun itself. Every piece of matter in the solar system seemed to be revealing hidden human ships. "Impossible," Sirenoth whispered. "Our long-range scans showed no such fleet." "Your scans were looking for metal ships with heat signatures and electromagnetic emissions," Admiral Chun explained. "Most of our fleet uses stealth technology based on programmable matter. We can make our ships look like asteroids, space debris, or empty space itself." Kethver watched in growing horror as the tactical display filled with red contacts. There were not hundreds of human ships. There were tens of thousands. Small fighter craft, medium destroyers, massive battleships, and things so large they defied classification. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. "This is not possible," he said. "Our intelligence reports were thorough. Your species only achieved interplanetary travel 50 years ago. Your intelligence was correct, Admiral. 50 years ago, we were exactly as primitive as your report suggested. But we are very fast learners and we have had excellent motivation to improve." "What motivation?" "We knew you were coming." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kethver felt his understanding of the situation shift once again. "How could you know?" "We intercepted your scout ships 3 years ago, Admiral. Your people were very careful, but not careful enough. We captured one of your survey drones and learned everything it knew about the hegemony." Kethver's mind raced back through the reports from this system. No scout ships had been reported missing. No survey drones had failed to return. But if the humans had captured one, "We did not destroy your scouts," Admiral Chun continued. "We studied them. We learned how your biotechnology works. We discovered your expansion patterns and your tactical doctrines. Most importantly, we learned that you were planning to conquer our world." "So you prepared?" Kethver said. "We did much more than prepare, Admiral. We evolved. In 3 years, we went from a divided species using chemical rockets to a unified consciousness with technology that makes your bioships look like toys. Do you know how we accomplished this?" Kethver said nothing. He was afraid to hear the answer. "We stopped fighting each other and started working together. We linked every human mind on Earth through quantum neural networks. We turned our entire species into a single intelligence focused on one goal, making sure that when you arrived, you would regret it." The implications were staggering. An entire species working as one mind, focused completely on military advancement for 3 solid years. The humans had not just improved their technology. They had redesigned themselves to become the perfect enemy for the hegemony. "Your bioships adapt by growing new organs and tissues," Admiral Chun said. "That process takes time. Our ships adapt by rewriting their programming in nanoseconds. Your ships learn from experience. Our ships learn from the shared knowledge of every human who has ever lived. Your ships are limited by biological constraints. Our ships are limited only by the laws of physics." On the tactical display, Kethver could see some of the human ships beginning to move. They flowed through space like schools of fish, their movements perfectly coordinated despite their vast numbers. Some were heading toward his fleet's flanks. Others were moving to block possible escape routes. "You came here expecting to conquer a primitive species," Admiral Chun continued. "Instead, you have encountered something that evolution has never produced before, an entire intelligent species that functions as a single organism dedicated to warfare." Kethver realized that the human ships were not just moving randomly. They were forming a 3-dimensional cage around his fleet, cutting off every possible avenue of retreat. The movements were subtle but unmistakable in their purpose. "What do you want?" he asked. "We want you to leave our system and never return. We want you to tell your hegemony that humanity is not interested in being conquered. And we want you to understand that if you ever threaten Earth again, we will not stop with defending ourselves. What do you mean? We mean that we have mapped every star system under hegemony control, Admiral. We know where your homeworlds are located. We know the positions of your shipyards and military bases. If you force us to fight, we will not just defeat your fleets. We will follow them home and teach your entire civilization what it means to face a species that has perfected the art of war. The threat was delivered in the same calm, friendly tone Admiral Chun had used throughout their conversation, but Kethver could hear the absolute certainty behind her words. The humans were not bluffing. They had the technology and the unified will to carry out their threat. You would commit genocide? He asked. We would do whatever is necessary to protect our species and our freedom, but we would prefer not to. The choice is yours, Admiral. You can withdraw now, and this encounter will remain a minor diplomatic incident. Or you can continue this engagement and discover what happens when a species that thinks as one decides that another species represents an existential threat. Kethver looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were warriors who had conquered 17 star systems. They had faced impossible odds before and always found a way to win. But now they looked afraid. They understood, as he did, that they were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. The humans had evolved beyond anything the universe had ever seen. They had become something new and terrible, a species that combined individual creativity with perfect collective action. They were not just defending their home system. They were announcing the arrival of a new kind of intelligence that would change everything. And they were giving the hegemony one chance to walk away. Admiral Kethver stared at the tactical display showing thousands of human ships surrounding his fleet. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of his command platform. In 30 years of warfare, he had never faced a situation like this. Every instinct told him to retreat, but his pride as a hegemony commander would not let him accept defeat so easily. Admiral Chun, he spoke into the communication system, the Zephyrian hegemony does not surrender to primitive species. We have conquered 17 star systems. We will conquer yours as well. The response came immediately. Admiral Chun's voice carried a note of sadness. I was hoping you would make the intelligent choice, Admiral. But I understand that pride can make beings do foolish things. Very well, you wanted to see what human warships are really capable of. We will show you. The channel closed. For a moment, space around the hegemony fleet remained perfectly still. Then everything changed. The first thing Kethver noticed was that the human ships stopped trying to hide themselves. What had looked like empty space suddenly filled with vessels of every size and shape. Some were sleek and small like metal daggers. Others were massive constructions that dwarfed even his largest battleships. All of them began moving toward his fleet with the same perfect coordination he had witnessed earlier. All ships, battle formation 7, Kethver commanded. Prepare for a full engagement. Show these humans what happens when they face the might of the hegemony. His 200 bioships began to change their arrangement, forming defensive clusters designed to protect each other from concentrated attack. The larger vessels moved to the center while smaller ships formed protective screens around them. It was a formation that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. The human response was immediate and terrible. Streams of light erupted from thousands of human ships simultaneously. But these were not the simple kinetic projectiles they had used against the 23rd Wing. These weapons were something else entirely. The beams of energy struck hegemony vessels and simply erased them from existence. Entire bioships vanished in flashes of light that lasted less than a second. Report, Kethver shouted. Admiral, the humans are using some kind of directed energy. Weapons, the sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. The energy output is consistent with controlled antimatter annihilation. Antimatter weapons? Cyranoth asked in disbelief. But antimatter is impossible to weaponize on that scale. Sir, I am detecting massive gravity fluctuations around the human ships. They appear to be using artificial singularities to contain and direct antimatter reactions. Kethver felt his world spinning out of control. Artificial singularities were theoretical constructs that most species considered impossible to create. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond any civilization's capability. Yet the humans were using them as weapons. On the tactical display, he watched as 30 of his ships disappeared in the first salvo. The biovessels tried to adapt, growing energy-absorbing tissues and reflective surfaces, but nothing could withstand directed antimatter explosion. The human weapons did not just destroy ships. They completely converted matter into energy, leaving nothing behind but expanding clouds of plasma. All ships, return fire. Kethfer ordered. The hegemony fleet responded with everything they had. Bioplasma streams erupted from hundreds of weapons pods. Living torpedoes launched by the thousands, seeking out the nearest human targets. Energy projectors that could melt planets focused their beams on the approaching enemy vessels. The result was devastating for the hegemony. The human ships moved through the incoming fire like they were dancing. Every plasma bolt, every torpedo, every energy beam arrived at coordinates where no human vessel existed. The enemy fleet flowed around the attacks like water flowing around stones, their movements guided by a shared intelligence that could predict every shot before it was fired. And they kept shooting back. More hegemony ships vanished in antimatter explosions. The human weapons fired with mechanical precision, each shot placed exactly where it would do the most damage. They targeted command ships first, then heavy weapons platforms, then support vessels. The attack pattern showed an understanding of hegemony fleet doctrine that should have been impossible for an outside species to possess. "How do they know our tactical formations?" Cyranoff demanded. "The scout ship," Kethfer realized. "They captured one of our survey drones 3 years ago. They have had time to study everything about us." The implications were terrifying. The humans had not just learned about hegemony technology. They had analyzed their entire military structure. Their command protocols, their standard formations, and their tactical doctrines. The enemy knew exactly how the hegemony fought and had prepared countermeasures for every strategy. "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from multiple ships," the communications officer reported. "Battle Group 7 reports complete destruction. Battle Group 3 is requesting permission to withdraw." "Negative on withdrawal," Kethfer replied. "All ships continue the attack. Deploy adaptive countermeasures." But the bioships were already trying to adapt, and it was not working. The living vessels grew thicker armor that the antimatter beams cut through like paper. They developed energy shields that provided no protection against weapons that converted matter directly into energy. They created electronic jamming systems that had no effect on quantum-entangled communications. For the first time in hegemony history, their greatest advantage had become useless. Adaptation required time to study enemy weapons and develop countermeasures. The human weapons destroyed ships so completely that there was nothing left to study. And even if there had been, the rate of destruction was too fast for biological systems to analyze and respond. "Admiral, the humans are deploying some kind of smaller craft," the sensor officer announced. Kethfer looked at the display and saw clouds of tiny objects launching from the larger human ships. At first he thought they were fighters or bombers, but the movement patterns were wrong. The small craft moved with even more coordination than the larger vessels, flowing through space like swarms of insects. "What are those?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They appear to be autonomous drones of some kind. Each unit is approximately 2 meters in length and shows minimal energy signatures." 2 meters? What possible threat could such small craft represent? He got his answer when the drone swarms reached the first hegemony ships. The tiny craft moved faster than anything Kethfer had ever seen. They darted through defensive fire like it did not exist, their small size and incredible speed making them nearly impossible to target. When they reached the bioships, they did not explode or fire weapons. Instead, they simply landed on the hulls and began to burrow inside. "Sir, the drones appear to be some kind of self-replicating nanomachines," the sensor officer reported. "In horror, they are consuming the biomatter of our ships and using it to create more drones." On the tactical display, Kethver watched as red indicators began appearing throughout his fleet. Ships that had been fighting moments before suddenly went dark as the nanomachine swarms consumed them from the inside out. The drones worked with terrifying efficiency, converting living tissue into more of themselves at an exponential rate. Can our ships adapt to resist them? Sirenov asked. The bioships are trying, sir, but the nanomachines are adapting faster than our vessels can evolve defenses. They appear to have access to the same quantum communication network as the human ships. The drone swarms shared the collective intelligence of humanity. They learned from every encounter, shared information instantly across vast distances, and adapted their tactics in real time. They were like a technological plague that could think and evolve. All ships emergency jump to hyperspace, Kethver ordered. Retreat immediately, but even retreat was not simple. The human fleet had positioned itself to block every escape route. Ships that tried to flee found themselves facing concentrated antimatter fire from multiple directions. The few vessels that managed to activate their hyperspace drives discovered that the humans had deployed some kind of gravity field generators that prevented faster-than-light travel. Sir, hyperspace is being jammed across the entire system, the navigation officer reported. The humans have created artificial gravity wells at every jump point. They were trapped. The hegemony fleet that had arrived expecting an easy conquest was now caught in a cage of human technology with no way to escape. The enemy had planned for every possibility and prepared countermeasures for every strategy. The battle continued for 4 hours, but it was not really a battle, it was an execution. The human fleet moved with the precision of a surgical instrument, systematically dismantling the hegemony forces. They destroyed command ships to disrupt coordination. They eliminated heavy weapons platforms to reduce enemy firepower. They used nanomachina swarms to consume support vessels from the inside out. Every action served a specific purpose in reducing hegemony capability. Most terrifying of all was the efficiency. The humans wasted no shots, made no unnecessary movements, and showed no emotion. They fought like a machine designed specifically for warfare, because that was exactly what they had become. Admiral Kethver watched his fleet die around him. 200 ships had been reduced to 20, then 12, then 6. The biovessels that had conquered 17 star systems were being destroyed by an enemy they had thought was primitive. Just hours earlier, Admiral, we are the last functional command ship, Sirenov reported quietly. All other battle groups have been eliminated. Kethver looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew. These were warriors who had never known defeat, and now they were watching their entire fleet being annihilated. Some were crying, others sat in stunned silence. All of them understood that they were witnessing the end of hegemony dominance in the galaxy. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Chun, the communications officer announced. Put it through. The human admiral's voice filled the bridge one final time. Admiral Kethver, you now have 12 ships remaining out of your original 200. I am prepared to allow these vessels to leave our system and return to hegemony space. This is your final opportunity to withdraw. Kethver stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of his fleet. Debris clouds marked the positions where proud bioships had died. The space around Earth had become a graveyard of hegemony ambitions. Why are you allowing us to leave? He asked. Because someone needs to deliver a message to your people. The message is simple. Humanity is not interested in being conquered. We are also not interested in conquering others as long as they leave us alone. But if any species threatens Earth again, we will not stop with defending ourselves. We will hunt down every ship, every world, and every individual responsible for the threat. We will show them what happens when a unified species decides that another civilization represents a danger to human survival. The transmission ended. Kethver gave the order to retreat, and his 12 surviving ships limped away from the Sol system. Behind them, thousands of human vessels watched silently, ready to complete the destruction if the aliens changed their minds. For the first time in over a century, a hegemony fleet had been defeated. Not just defeated, but utterly destroyed. By an enemy that had rewritten the rules of warfare itself. The age of hegemony expansion was over. The 12 surviving ships of the 47th Subjugation Fleet limped through hyperspace toward hegemony territory. Admiral Kethver sat in his command chair aboard the badly damaged devouring maw, staring at reports he could barely believe. His bioship was dying around him, its living system struggling to repair, damage that went beyond anything they had been designed to handle. The journey home took 14 rotations. During that time, Kethver composed his report to the Hegemony Council, deleted it, and started again dozens of times. How could he explain what had happened at Sol? How could he make the Council understand that everything they believed about their superiority was wrong? When the fleet finally arrived at Nexus Prime, the hegemony capital world, Kethver was immediately summoned before the High Council. The 12 surviving ships were quarantined and their crews subjected to intensive questioning. Many of the council members seemed to think the survivors were suffering from some kind of mental breakdown. You claim that a primitive species destroyed 188 of your ships? High Counselor Vexler asked, his ancient voice full of disbelief. The same species our intelligence reports described as barely capable of interplanetary travel? Yes, High Counselor, Kethver replied. The humans have evolved far beyond our initial assessments. They possess technology that makes our bioships appear primitive by comparison. Impossible, declared Counselor Mordick. We have conquered 17 star systems. No species has ever successfully resisted the hegemony. Your fleet must have encountered some kind of automated defense system left behind by an extinct elder race. Kethver had expected this reaction. The idea that the hegemony could be defeated was so foreign to their way of thinking that they would rather believe any alternative explanation, no matter how unlikely. High Counselor, I have brought complete sensor recordings of the engagement. The attackers were definitely the human species we came to conquer. They spoke to us, negotiated with us, and gave us multiple opportunities to withdraw before the battle began. Show us these recordings, Vexler commanded, for the next several hours. The council watched in growing silence as the events at Sol played out on holographic displays. They saw the human ships moving with impossible coordination. They witnessed the antimatter weapons that could erase bioships from existence. They observed the nanomachine swarms that consumed living vessels from the inside out. When the recordings ended, the council chamber remained quiet for long minutes. Finally, High Counselor Vexler spoke. These images could be fabricated. The technology you describe violates known physical laws. High Counselor, with respect, our bioships also violated known physical laws when we first developed them. The humans have simply advanced beyond us in different directions. Even if we accept your claims, Counselor Mordick said, 1 star. System cannot threaten the entire hegemony. We will assemble a larger fleet and crush this resistance. This was exactly what Kethver had feared they would say. High Counselor, I do not believe you understand the magnitude of what we faced. The humans are not just technologically superior. They have achieved something that evolution has never produced before. Their entire species functions as a single organism dedicated to warfare. Explain, Vexler demanded. They have linked every member of their species through quantum neural networks. When we fought 12 ships, we were actually fighting the combined intelligence of billions of individuals. Every human ship has access to the knowledge and experience of their entire civilization. They do not just adapt to new situations. They instantly know the optimal response to any threat because they can draw on the collective wisdom of their species. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. A species where every individual shared knowledge with every other individual would advance at an exponential rate. They would never make the same mistake twice because any lesson learned by one would be instantly known by all. You are describing a hive mind, Counselor Relfic observed. No, Counselor. A hive mind subordinates individual consciousness to a collective will. The humans have maintained their individuality while gaining the benefits of shared knowledge. They have evolved beyond the limitations that constrain normal species. The council debated for days. Some members refused to believe Kethver's reports. Others demanded immediate retaliation. A few suggested that the hegemony should avoid the Sol system entirely and focus on easier conquests. In the end, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one and doomed them all. The 12th Grand Fleet was assembled. 800 ships, the largest military force in hegemony history. If the humans had somehow defeated the 47th Subjugation Fleet through luck or superior technology, they would not survive against such overwhelming numbers. High Admiral Zefkal commanded the Grand Fleet. He was a legendary figure who had personally led the conquests of 6 star systems. His flagship, the World Eater, was a bioship so large it could be mistaken for a small moon. The Council gave him simple orders: destroy the human resistance and claim the Sol system for the hegemony. The 12th Grand Fleet departed Nexus Prime. With great ceremony, citizens gathered to watch the massive armada leave for what they believed would be their greatest victory. The bioships formed a parade formation that stretched across half the star system, their living hulls gleaming in the light of the capital sun. 3 months later, the fleet was overdue for its first progress report. 6 months after that, a single automated probe returned to hegemony space. It carried no crew and no detailed information. Its message was simple: the 12th Grand Fleet no longer existed. The Council refused to accept this outcome. They convinced themselves that the probe had malfunctioned or been tampered with by unknown enemies. They authorized the 3rd Imperial Fleet, then the 7th Battle Group, then the 19th Assault Wing. Each force was larger and more powerful than the last. Each force disappeared completely after entering the Sol system. Other species threw out. The galaxy began to take notice. The hegemony had always been careful to hide their defeats, but the loss of 5 major fleets could not be kept secret. Whispers spread through the galactic community about the Death World and its impossible guardians. The Crusade Assembly sent a diplomatic mission to investigate. The envoys never returned, but their last transmission spoke of human ships that moved like thoughts given form and weapons that unmade reality itself. The Void Shepherds dispatched a survey fleet that came back with reports of an entire star system converted into a fortress, with artificial worlds and megastructures that defied understanding. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Hegemony Council struggled to maintain order. The loss of so many ships had created panic among the military leadership. Several conquered species began to rebel, sensing weakness in their masters. The bioshipyards worked constantly to replace the lost vessels, but they could not keep up with the rate of destruction. Then the humans made their first move beyond their own system. It started with small ships appearing in border systems. They did not attack or make contact. They simply observed, recorded, and left. Hegemony forces that tried to intercept them found that the human vessels could disappear at will, using stealth technology that made them impossible to track. The observation missions continued for months. Human ships mapped every hegemony installation, every trade route, every military base. They studied patrol patterns, defensive arrangements, and communication protocols. The message was clear: humanity was learning everything about their enemies. The first real attack came without warning. A hegemony fortress guarding a critical hyperspace junction simply vanished one day. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely gone, as if it had never existed. The only evidence of what had happened was a cloud of converted matter, where the station had been, and a single transmission on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarachun of the United Earth Defense Force. The Zephyrian hegemony has made multiple unprovoked attacks on the Sol system. These attacks will stop immediately. Any hegemony vessel found within 50 light-years of Earth will be destroyed without warning. Any hegemony installation used to support further attacks will be eliminated. This is your only notice. The transmission was sent to every hegemony world simultaneously, despite the fact that instantaneous communication across such distances should have been impossible. The humans had somehow bypassed the normal limitations of physics to deliver Their message directly to the heart of hegemony space. High Counselor Vexler convened an emergency session to discuss the human ultimatum. Some members demanded immediate retaliation. Others suggested that the council should consider negotiating with the humans. A few whispered that perhaps the hegemony should surrender before things got worse. "We cannot surrender to a single star system," Counselor Mordek declared. "Our reputation as conquerors is the foundation of our empire. If we show weakness now, every subject species will rebel. And if we continue fighting, we may not have an empire left to defend," Counselor Relfic replied. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding. Perhaps it is time to admit that we have encountered a superior force." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, pride won over wisdom. The council voted to reject the human ultimatum and authorized one final assault on the Sol system. The last fleet, comprised of every remaining hegemony warship, would either destroy the humans or die in the attempt. The last fleet never reached Earth. It was intercepted at the edge of hegemony space by a force that defied every law of physics and military strategy. Witnesses described ships that moved faster than light without using hyperspace drives. They spoke of weapons that could destroy planets from impossible distances. Most disturbing of all, they reported that the human fleet seemed to know exactly where every hegemony ship would be and what every commander would do before the orders were given. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the hegemony's military power was broken forever. The humans did not pursue the survivors or occupy hegemony worlds. They simply returned to their own space and waited. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. A new apex predator had emerged from an unremarkable star system on the galactic rim. Humanity had evolved beyond the normal limitations of organic intelligence and created something that the universe had never seen before, a species that functioned as a single organism while maintaining individual creativity and free will. The Zephyrian hegemony still existed, but it no longer expanded. Its surviving leaders spent their time dealing with rebellions and maintaining what remained of their territory. They never again spoke of conquering the Sol system. They had learned, as 17 other species had learned before them, that some prey were more dangerous than any predator. The galaxy had a new rule. Earth was protected. Its people were protected. Those who threatened either would face the combined might of a species that had turned evolution itself into a weapon. And in the Sol system, Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the stars. Around her, the quantum neural network hummed with the thoughts and dreams of 8 billion humans, all united in a single purpose: to ensure that their species would never bow to any other power in the universe. The age of humanity had begun.
The Galactic Council convenes on the neutral station Nexus Prime, where representatives from dozens of species gather to discuss the human problem. For centuries, Earth has been isolated behind an impenetrable barrier of unknown origin. Recent, deep space sensors have detected massive energy signatures from the Sol system, suggesting the humans are building something unprecedented. Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Force stands on the bridge of humanity's greatest achievement, the UES Titan's Wrath, a kilometer-long battleship that represents 200 years of desperate innovation. Earth's isolation wasn't protection. It was a prison created by an ancient alien race that viewed humans as too dangerous to release. Now the barrier is failing, and Kane knows they have one chance to prove humanity deserves its place among the stars. The story establishes the galaxy's fear of humans through council debates, showing how Earth's quarantine was implemented after early human expeditions displayed excessive aggression and unpredictable tactical thinking. Meanwhile, aboard the Titan's Wrath, Captain Stone briefs his diverse crew on their historic mission to break through the barrier and make first contact. Part 2. Breaking the Chains. The UES Titan's Wrath activates its revolutionary quantum fusion, drive charges toward the barrier surrounding Earth's solar system. The ancient energy field designed to contain humanity for millennia begins to crack under the ship's assault. Across the galaxy, Monitoring stations detect the barrier's failure and send emergency broadcasts. Commander Blake leads the ship's fighter squadrons in escort formation as they punch through the weakening barrier. The breakthrough creates a massive energy pulse that ripples across nearby star systems, alerting every major galactic power to humanity's emergence. On the bridge, Navigator Park calculates jump coordinates for the nearest inhabited system, while Engineer Ross monitors the ship's exotic weaponry. The Galactic Council receives reports of the barrier's destruction with growing panic. President Vale of the peaceful Centauri Republic orders immediate military mobilization, while War Chief Dex of the militant Rigel Empire sees an opportunity to test human capabilities. The chapter ends with the Titan's Wrath completing its first, faster-than-light jump in human history, emerging in the Proxima system where a Coalition patrol fleet awaits. Part 3. First Contact. First Blood. The Coalition fleet, led by Admiral Vex of the Andromedan Navy, intercepts the Titan's Wrath with overwhelming numbers, 50 ships against 1. They broadcast demands for surrender, expecting the lone human vessel to submit to superior firepower. Instead, Captain Stone responds with a simple message. This is humanity's introduction to the galaxy. We suggest you pay attention. The battle that follows becomes legendary. The Titan's Wrath demonstrates human tactical innovation through unconventional maneuvers that confuse alien commanders trained in traditional warfare. Lieutenant Fox coordinates point defense systems that use Earth's gravitational calculations to predict enemy movements, while Weapons Officer Grant unleashes humanity's secret advantage, kinetic weapons that bypass energy shields through pure physics. In 15 minutes, the human battleship destroys or disables the entire Coalition fleet using tactics no alien strategist anticipated. The survivors flee to spread word of humanity's terrifying combat capabilities. The galaxy watches in horror as battle recordings show humans treating warfare not as ritual combat, but as a problem to be solved through any means necessary. The chapter ends with Kane addressing the Galactic Council via long-range transmission, formally announcing humanity's arrival. Part 4. The galaxy unites in fear. News of humanity's devastating victory spreads across the galaxy within days. The Galactic Council convenes in emergency session as species that have been enemies for centuries suddenly find common ground in their terror of the human threat. Ambassador Nix of the Vegan Confederacy proposes immediate military action, while Scholar Hal of the Ancient Titan Collective shares disturbing historical records about humanity's violent past. Meanwhile, the Titan's Wrath continues its diplomatic mission, visiting system after system and leaving a trail of awed and terrified witnesses. Each encounter demonstrates different aspects of human ingenuity, from Chief Medical Officer Lane's revolutionary healing techniques that surpass alien medicine, to Chief Engineer Ross's ability to repair and improve alien technology within hours of first examining it. The galaxy's greatest military minds gather to analyze human combat footage. They identify what makes humans so dangerous: adaptability, innovation under pressure, and a willingness to use any available resource as a weapon. General Zor of the Hegemony Fleet realizes that humans don't just fight to win, they fight to ensure their enemies can never threaten them again. The chapter culminates with the formation of the largest military alliance in galactic history, united by a single purpose: containing the human threat. Part 5. When gods walk among mortals, the combined galactic fleet, over 10,000 ships, representing every major power, assembles at the edge of human space. The Armada's commander, Supreme Admiral Rex of the First Hegemony, broadcasts a final ultimatum demanding humanity's immediate surrender and return to isolation. The response comes not from Earth, but from Captain Stone aboard the seemingly insignificant Titan's Wrath. The final battle reveals the true scope of human preparation. The Titan's Wrath was never meant to fight alone. It was a test platform for weapons and tactics that humanity has now deployed across hundreds of hidden ships. As the galactic fleet attacks, human vessels emerge from stealth throughout the system, demonstrating technology that seems to violate known physics. The battle's turning point comes when Engineer Ross reveals humanity's ultimate weapon, not a device, but a philosophy. While aliens fight to maintain their civilization's status quo, humans fight for the right to grow, explore, and become something greater. The Titan's wrath doesn't just defeat the galactic fleet. It does so while protecting civilian ships and offering mercy to surrendering enemies. The story concludes with Admiral Kane accepting the Galactic Council's unconditional surrender aboard their flagship. As he stands before the representatives of dozens of species, Kane delivers humanity's terms. Not conquest but partnership. The galaxy that once screamed in fear of humanity's arrival now faces a choice: evolve alongside humanity, or be left behind as humans continue their inexorable expansion among the stars. The final scene shows children from multiple species playing, together on Earth, while in the background, human and alien engineers collaborate on technologies that will reshape the galaxy. The barrier that once contained humanity has become a bridge to the stars. The UES Titan's wrath moved through space like a predator stalking its prey. Captain Stone watched the barrier grow larger on the main screen, its swirling energy patterns dancing across the darkness like deadly lightning. After 200 years, humanity was finally ready to break free. Distance to barrier? Stone asked calmly. 5 million kilometers and closing, Navigator Park replied, her fingers dancing across her control panel. The energy field is fluctuating more than our models predicted. It's almost like it knows we're coming. Engineer Ross looked up from his station, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool bridge temperature. Captain, the quantum fusion drive is running hotter than we've ever tested. The power output is beyond anything we thought possible. Stone nodded. They had pushed human technology to its absolute limits building this ship. Every system aboard the Titan's wrath represented decades of desperate innovation. While the galaxy had enjoyed peace and prosperity, humanity had been forced to evolve or die in their stellar prison. Commander Blake, are the fighter squadrons ready? Stone asked. Blake checked his tactical display. All 48 fighters are fueled and armed. Pilots are standing by for launch. They're nervous but excited, sir. Most of them have never seen open space beyond the barrier. That thought struck Stone like a physical blow. An entire generation of humans had grown up knowing the stars only as distant lights visible through their prison walls. Today's mission wasn't just about freedom. It was about giving his people back their birthright. Admiral Kane stood at the rear of the bridge, studying sensor readings that made his blood run cold. The barrier wasn't just a simple energy field. It was a living system, constantly adapting and responding to threats. The aliens who built it had created something truly remarkable. A prison that could think. "Sir," called Sensors Officer Grant, "I'm detecting massive power buildups throughout the barrier network. It's like the whole system is preparing to defend itself." Kane stepped forward. "Can we break through?" Engineer Ross ran quick calculations on his screen. The barrier draws power from local space itself, gravity fields, solar radiation, even cosmic background energy. But it has limits. If we hit it hard enough, fast enough, we can overload its ability to adapt. Stone made his decision. "All hands, prepare for barrier breach. This is not a drill. In 60 seconds, we either break free or die trying." Throughout the massive ship, crew members secured their stations and activated emergency systems. In the fighter bays, pilots climbed into cockpits while mechanics made final checks on weapons and engines. In engineering, teams monitored the exotic reactors that powered humanity's most advanced technology. 30 seconds to contact, Park announced. The barrier filled their entire view now, a wall of energy that stretched beyond sight in all directions. Patterns flowed across its surface like oil on water, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. For 2 centuries, this had been the edge of humanity's world. 10 seconds, Park counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Titan's wrath struck the barrier like a spear thrust from the gods themselves. Light exploded around them as the ship's reinforced hull met the alien energy field. Every system aboard screamed warnings as impossible forces tried to tear the vessel apart. The quantum fusion drive roared with the fury of a captured star, pouring energy into the barrier breach faster than the alien system could compensate. "Hull integrity holding," shouted Engineer Ross over the noise. "Drive output at 120%. We're in the red zone, but she's holding together." Captain Stone gripped his command chair as the ship bucked and twisted like a living thing. On the main screen, cracks appeared in the barrier, spreading outward like breaks in cosmic ice. The alien prison was fighting back, but human determination was proving stronger than alien engineering. "Energy discharge detected," called Grant from sensors. "The barrier is releasing stored power in massive pulses. It's screaming, sir, like something in pain." The sound came through their speakers, a wailing electronic cry that seemed to echo across dimensions. The barrier wasn't just breaking, it was dying. Whatever intelligence controlled the prison was experiencing something like agony as humanity tore it apart. Commander Blake launched his fighters as soon as the first cracks appeared. 48 small craft poured through the gaps, their human pilots seeing open space for the first time in their lives. They spread out in perfect formation, protecting the Titan's wrath as it continued its assault on the weakening barrier. "This is Fighter 1, came Lieutenant Fox's voice over the radio. "I can see stars, Captain, real stars, not just dots of light through the barrier. They're beautiful." The emotion in the young pilot's voice reminded everyone what they were fighting for. This wasn't just about military victory. This was about freedom, about the right to explore and grow and become more than their prison had allowed. The barrier gave one final, desperate pulse of energy, then shattered like glass. The wave of destruction rippled outward at faster than light speeds, carrying news of humanity's escape to every corner of the galaxy. On monitoring stations throughout local space, alien sensors registered the barrier's death with growing horror. "Barrier breach confirmed," announced Park, barely able to contain her excitement. "We're through. We're actually through." The crew erupted in cheers that could be heard throughout the ship. After 200 years of imprisonment, humanity was finally free to reclaim its place among the stars. But Admiral Kane wasn't celebrating yet. "Long-range sensors, what do you see?" Grant worked quickly to scan the space beyond their former prison. "Multiple contacts, sir. I count 15 ships, holding position near the Proxima system. They're big, sir. Much bigger than anything in our historical databases." Stone felt his excitement turn to cold determination. "A welcoming committee?" "More likely a patrol fleet," Kane replied grimly. "They've been waiting for us to break free. The question is, are they here to greet us or destroy us?" Engineer Ross checked his readings one more time. "Drive system stable, sir. All weapons are fully charged. Whatever's waiting for us out there, we're ready for it." Navigator Park plotted their course to the nearest star system. "Jump coordinates locked in, Captain. We can reach the Proxima system in 12 hours. Stone looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These men and women had just accomplished the impossible, breaking through a barrier that was supposed to contain humanity forever. Now they faced an even greater challenge, proving to the galaxy that humans deserved their freedom. "Set course for Proxima," Stone ordered. "Let's go introduce ourselves to our neighbors." As the Titan's wrath engaged its faster-than-light drive for the first time, shockwaves from the barrier's destruction reached alien worlds throughout local space. Emergency broadcasts flooded communication networks as governments realized what had happened. On Nexus Prime, Supreme Counselor Rex received the news with something approaching panic. The impossible had occurred. Humanity was free. Now the galaxy would discover what 2 centuries of forced evolution had created. War Chief Dex, who had dismissed human capabilities just hours before, found himself ordering immediate military mobilization. Ambassador Vale began composing emergency messages to every peaceful world she could reach. The barrier was broken. Humanity was coming. And the galaxy was about to learn why their ancestors had been so afraid. The Proxima system's outer edge buzzed with military activity, as 50 coalition warships held formation in a massive defensive line. Admiral Vex of the Andromedan Navy stood on his flagship's bridge, studying tactical displays that showed his overwhelming advantage. 50 ships against 1. The humans would have no choice but to surrender. "Status report," Vex commanded, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral," replied his tactical officer. "The human vessel should drop out of hyperspace within the hour. Our sensors indicate it's traveling alone." Vex nodded with satisfaction. The Coalition had assembled this fleet within hours of receiving news about the barrier's destruction. Ships from 6 different species, all united by fear of what humanity might do if left unchecked. The plan was simple: overwhelm the human. Ship with superior numbers and force an immediate surrender. "What do we know about their vessel?" asked Captain Moore of the Rigel cruiser Death's Edge. "Long-range scans show it's approximately 1 kilometer in length," Vex replied. "Heavily armored, unknown weapons systems, but it's still just 1 ship against 50. Mathematics favors us heavily." What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had never cared much for mathematics when it came to warfare. The Titan's Wrath dropped out of hyperspace exactly where Navigator Park had predicted, appearing in a flash of twisted light at the edge of the Proxima system. Captain Stone immediately saw the alien fleet waiting for them, spread across space like a steel net designed to catch a single fish. 50 contacts confirmed, reported Sensors Officer Grant. Multiple ship classes, mixed fleet composition. They've got us surrounded in a standard envelopment formation. Stone studied the tactical display with interest rather than concern. The alien formation was textbook perfect, exactly what their military academies probably taught as proper fleet engagement doctrine. It was also predictable, rigid, and completely unprepared for human tactical thinking. "Communications, are they trying to talk to us?" Stone asked. "Multiple signals incoming, sir," replied Communications Officer Blake. "They're broadcasting on standard diplomatic frequencies. Translation software is working on it now." The main screen flickered as the alien message came through. Admiral Vex's inhuman features appeared, his tentacles writhing as he spoke in carefully measured tones. "Unknown human vessel, this is Admiral Vex of the Coalition Defense Force. You have entered restricted space without authorization. You will power down all weapon systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any attempt to resist will be met with overwhelming force." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed the aliens' words. After 200 years of imprisonment, their first contact with galactic civilization was a demand for surrender. Captain Stone activated the communication system and looked directly into the camera. "Admiral Vex, this is Captain Stone of the United Earthship Titan's Wrath. Thank you for the warm welcome. We're here to establish diplomatic relations with the galactic community." He paused, then smiled in a way that would have made his ancestors proud. "However, we respectfully decline your inspection. Consider this humanity's introduction to the galaxy. We suggest you pay attention." The transmission ended, leaving the alien fleet commanders staring at their screens in confusion. The human captain hadn't seemed afraid or even concerned about being outnumbered 50-1. If anything, he had seemed almost amused. "Did he just refuse our demands?" asked Captain Moore in disbelief. Admiral Vex's tentacles turned dark red with anger. "All ships prepare to engage. Target their engines and weapon systems. We'll disable them and take them alive for questioning. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come." The Titan's Wrath didn't try to run or hide. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation, its human crew implementing tactics no alien commander had ever imagined. "Evasive pattern Alpha 7, Stone ordered calmly. "Weapons Officer Grant, you are authorized to engage." Lieutenant Fox, leading the fighter squadrons, launched his 48 craft in a spread that confused alien targeting systems. But these weren't normal attack patterns. They were chaos incarnate, each pilot following unpredictable flight paths that made computer-assisted targeting nearly impossible. The first alien ships opened fire with energy weapons designed to overwhelm shields through sustained bombardment. It was standard galactic warfare, 2 fleets exchanging beam weapons until one side's defenses failed. But the Titan's Wrath didn't have energy shields. Instead, Engineer Ross had developed something the galaxy had forgotten was possible. Kinetic barriers that used pure physics to deflect incoming fire. Alien energy beams struck the human ship and scattered harmlessly in all directions, painting space with beautiful but useless light shows. "Their weapons aren't penetrating our defenses," reported Grant with excitement. "The kinetic barriers are working perfectly," Stone nodded. While the galaxy had focused on more and more powerful energy weapons, humans had remembered that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Titan's wrath carried weapons that would have seemed primitive to alien eyes, if they had understood what they were looking at. "Target the lead cruiser," Stone ordered. "Fire one." A single projectile launched from the human ship, not an energy beam or plasma bolt, but a simple piece of metal accelerated to near light speed. The tungsten rod struck the alien cruiser's shields at relativistic velocity, and the laws of physics did the rest. The coalition flagship Sovereign's pride simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic energy that no shield in the galaxy was designed to stop. The explosion lit up local space like a newborn star. "Impossible!" screamed Captain Moore as debris from the flagship rained against his own shields. "What kind of weapon was that?" The answer came in the form of 47 more kinetic projectiles, each one targeted with mathematical precision that made alien computer systems look like children's toys. Human fighters wove between enemy ships, their pilots using gravitational calculations to predict alien movements with deadly accuracy. In exactly 15 minutes and 37 seconds, the engagement was over. 23 alien ships were destroyed outright. 19 more were disabled, their crews alive but their vessels crippled beyond repair. 8 ships had managed to escape by abandoning their formations and running for hyperspace. The Titan's wrath floated undamaged in the center of the debris field, its crew calmly running post-battle diagnostics. "Damage report," Stone requested. "Hull integrity at 100%, Engineer Ross replied with satisfaction. "Minor power fluctuations in the kinetic barriers, but all systems are operating normally. We expended less than 5% of our ammunition." Navigator Park looked up from her station with wonder in her eyes. "Sir, we just defeated 50 alien warships, 50 of them." Stone activated the long-range communication system, broadcasting, on frequencies that would reach every major power in the galaxy. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of prophecy. "This is Captain Stone of the United Earth ship Titan's Wrath, addressing the Galactic Council and all member civilizations. Humanity has returned to the stars. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with all species." He paused, looking out at the wreckage of the alien fleet. "However, we will not be imprisoned again. We will not be intimidated or threatened. Any attempt to restrict human freedom will be met with appropriate response. The age of humanity has begun. We suggest you adapt accordingly." The transmission ended, but its echoes would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. In council, chambers, and military headquarters, alien leaders watched the battle recordings with growing horror. Humans didn't fight like civilized species. They fought like forces of nature, unpredictable, overwhelming, and utterly without mercy for those who threatened them. The galaxy had wanted to see what humanity had become during their imprisonment. Now they knew, and they were terrified. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began exactly 36 hours after the Battle of Proxima. In the Great Chamber of Nexus Prime, representatives from over 200 worlds gathered with expressions of terror and disbelief painted across their alien features. Supreme Counselor Rex's crystalline body flickered with agitated patterns as he called for order. "We have all seen the battle recordings. In 15 minutes, a single human ship destroyed 23 coalition vessels and disabled 19 more. We must decide how to respond." The silence that followed was deafening. These were beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, whose civilizations spanned thousands of star systems. Yet a single ship from a species they had forgotten was making them question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Ambassador Nix of the Vegan Confederacy stood first, his pale green skin almost translucent with fear. "The humans used weapons we didn't even recognize, our shields, our defenses, our tactics, none of it mattered. They swept through our fleet like we were children playing with toys. The weapon signatures make no sense. added Dr. Zara, the hegemony's chief scientist. Her 6 eyes blinked in rapid sequence as she studied data tablets. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near-light speed, its primitive physics applied with impossible precision. Our computers couldn't even track the trajectories. War Chief Dex, who had dismissed human capabilities just days before, sat in stunned silence. His proud warrior culture had never faced an enemy that treated battle not as honor combat, but as a problem to be solved through any means necessary. "How many ships do we have in total?" asked Ambassador Vale, her voice barely above a whisper. General, Call of the Andromedan Defense Force consulted his military database. Combined fleets of all member species total approximately 47,000 vessels, but after seeing what one human ship accomplished, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Numbers meant nothing if human technology could ignore their defenses completely. Scholar Hal fluttered her gossamer wings nervously as she accessed historical records. "I've been studying the old archives. Before the quarantine, humans displayed behavioral patterns unlike any known species. They adapted to new situations faster than our best tactical computers could predict. The holographic display showed grainy footage from 2 centuries past. Human ships performing maneuvers that seemed to violate the basic principles of space combat. Ships using debris as weapons. Pilots ejecting from damaged fighters only to detonate their craft as proximity mines. Cargo vessels ramming military cruisers with suicidal determination. They don't fight to win," Scholar Hal continued, her voice trembling. "They fight to ensure their enemies can never threaten them again. It's a level of warfare we've never encountered." Meanwhile, the UES Titan's Wrath continued its journey through galactic space, visiting system after system. Each encounter left alien civilizations more terrified than the last. At the Centauri Trade Hub, Captain Stone met with local merchants to discuss peaceful commerce. The aliens expected negotiations to take weeks, following established diplomatic protocols. Instead, Chief Medical Officer Lane demonstrated human medical technology that could heal injuries in minutes rather than days. "Your cellular regeneration techniques are impossible," stammered Dr. Rex, a Centauri physician whose forearms shook as he examined the medical scanner. "This technology is centuries beyond our current capabilities." Lane smiled gently. "We had 200 years to focus on keeping our people alive in a hostile environment. Necessity breeds innovation." In the industrial system of Rigel 7, Engineer Ross examined alien manufacturing equipment and identified 17 different improvements within the first hour. His casual suggestions doubled the factory's output efficiency, leaving the plant supervisors staring at production figures they had never imagined possible. "How did you know to realign the molecular matrices?" asked Chief Engineer Vort, his metallic body sparking with nervous energy. Ross shrugged. "It's just physics. We're fighting the natural flow instead of working with it." Each demonstration of human capability sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. These weren't the primitive warriors who had been locked away centuries ago. This was something new, something evolved, something that had spent 2 centuries learning to survive and thrive under impossible conditions. Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency session continued as military leaders from across the galaxy analyzed human combat footage frame by frame. Admiral Zek of the 1st Hegemony Fleet pointed at tactical displays showing the Battle of Proxima. "Look at their fighter patterns. No computer could generate flight paths that random, yet they achieved perfect coordination. It's like they're thinking and reacting as a single organism." "The kinetic weapons bypass all known defensive systems," added General Moore of the Rigel Empire. "Energy shields, particle barriers, even gravitational deflectors. None of it stops simple metal moving at relativistic speeds." Captain Hex of the Titan Collective's warfleet studied human ship movements with growing dread. "They're not following any tactical doctrine we recognize. They treat each engagement as a unique puzzle to be solved. By the time we adapt to their tactics, they've already changed them." The most disturbing revelation came from Dr. Yan, the galaxy's leading expert in xenopsychology. "I've analyzed their communication patterns and behavioral responses. Humans don't just fight to defend themselves, They fight to ensure their species' continued expansion and growth. They view any attempt to limit their freedom as an existential threat. Supreme Counselor Rex processed this information with growing alarm. Are you saying they cannot be contained through traditional diplomatic methods? I'm saying they've evolved beyond containment, Dr. Yan replied grimly. 2 centuries of isolation didn't weaken them. It forced them to become something we've never encountered before, a species that treats survival as an active process rather than a passive state. The session was interrupted by urgent communications from across the galaxy. The human ship had been detected in 17 different systems over the past week, each time demonstrating new capabilities that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. Ambassador Vale received reports from her homeworld with increasing panic. They've shared medical technology that could revolutionize healthcare across the galaxy. They've solved engineering problems that have puzzled our best minds for decades. They're not trying to conquer us through force alone. They're proving their superiority in every field of knowledge. The terrible truth began to dawn on the assembled delegates. Humanity hadn't just built better weapons during their imprisonment. They had become better at everything: medicine, engineering, science, tactics. 2 centuries of desperate innovation had produced a species that could outthink, outfight, and outbuild any civilization in the galaxy. What do they want? Whispered War Chief Dex, his warrior's pride completely shattered. The answer came from an unexpected source. A new transmission from the Titan's Wrath appeared on the main display, showing Captain Stone addressing the camera with calm confidence. To the leaders of the Galactic Council, Stone began, we understand your concerns about humanity's capabilities. We want you to know that we harbor no ill will toward any species that chooses peaceful coexistence. He paused, his expression hardening slightly. However, we also want you to understand that humanity will never again accept imprisonment or limitation. We are prepared to defend our freedom with whatever means necessary. The transmission showed images of human colonies being established, human technology being shared with willing alien partners, and human ships patrolling trade routes to protect peaceful commerce. We offer partnership, Stone concluded. Those who accept our friendship will find humanity to be loyal allies. Those who choose to oppose us. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The galaxy faced a choice that would define the next 1,000 years of interstellar civilization. Accept humanity as an equal partner, or face a species that had spent 2 centuries learning to break any cage that confined them. The age of human dominance had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The greatest armada in galactic history assembled at the edge of human space, like a storm cloud preparing to unleash its fury. Over 10,000 ships from every major civilization hung in the void, their combined firepower capable of cracking planets and sterilizing entire star systems. Supreme Admiral Rex of the First Hegemony commanded the massive fleet from his flagship Universal Dominion, a battleship so large it had its own gravity field. Around him floated holographic displays showing the positions of vessels from 200 different worlds, all united by a single purpose: containing the human threat once and for all. Final fleet count? Rex asked, his crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. 10,417 vessels confirmed, reported Fleet Coordinator Vex. Every major power has contributed ships. The Rigel Empire sent their entire war fleet. Even the peaceful Centauri provided support vessels. Rex studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. No force in galactic history had ever assembled this much firepower in one place. Whatever humanity had become during their imprisonment, they could not possibly stand against these odds. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Jump to Earth's solar system, surround the human homeworld, and deliver an ultimatum that no sane species could refuse. Surrender completely or watch their planet burn from orbit. Communications, open a channel to the human vessel, Rex commanded. The Titan's Wrath appeared on screen, looking impossibly small compared to the alien armada. Captain Stone stood on his bridge with the same calm confidence he had shown throughout his journey across the galaxy. Captain Stone, Rex began, his voice carrying the authority of 1,000 worlds. You are surrounded by the combined might of galactic civilization. Your single ship faces over 10,000 vessels. I offer you this final chance. Surrender immediately and return to your system. Accept permanent isolation, and your species will be allowed to live. Stone listened to the ultimatum without expression, then activated his own communication system. Admiral Rex, I appreciate your position. 10,000 ships is indeed impressive. However, I think you've misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. He smiled, and something in that expression made alien commanders across the fleet feel suddenly cold. You assumed we came alone. Space around the human solar system suddenly erupted with new contacts as hundreds of ships decloaked simultaneously. The vessels appeared from impossible angles, behind asteroids, inside gas giant atmospheres, even hiding in the corona of the sun itself. "Impossible!" screamed Fleet Coordinator Vex. "Our sensors detected only one human ship." "You detected what we wanted you to detect," Stone replied calmly. "The Titan's wrath was never meant to fight alone. It was a test platform, a demonstration of what humanity could accomplish. What you're seeing now is what we built while you were debating our fate." The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that seemed to bend light around themselves. Vessels that appeared solid one moment and translucent the next. Craft that moved through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions to be ignored. Admiral Rex watched his tactical displays with growing horror as more human contacts appeared. "How many ships do they have?" The answer came from Captain Stone himself. "Enough." Engineer Ross had spent the journey home preparing Earth's defenses. What the aliens saw as a single solar system, humans had transformed into the most heavily fortified position in the galaxy. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with weapons. Space stations disguised as orbital debris weighted with charged particle cannons. Even the gas giants themselves had been turned into defensive platforms. "All ships commence attack," Rex ordered desperately. "Destroy them before they can fully deploy." The Galactic Armada opened fire with weapons that could vaporize moons. Energy beams lanced across space in brilliant displays of destructive power. Missile swarms darkened the void as 10,000 ships unleashed everything they had. The human response was devastating in its precision. Instead of meeting energy with energy, the human fleet used tactics that alien commanders couldn't comprehend. Ships that should have been destroyed simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. Vessels appeared to teleport between positions, striking at enemy weak points with surgical accuracy. Lieutenant Fox led fighter squadrons that moved like schools of fish, each pilot anticipating the actions of their teammates through intuition that bordered on telepathy. They wove between alien capital ships, planting kinetic charges that detonated with mathematical precision. "They're not fighting like separate ships," observed General Cole in amazement. "It's like they're all part of one massive organism." That observation was more accurate than the alien general realized. During their isolation, humanity had developed communication systems that linked every human mind in real-time combat coordination. They didn't fight as individuals commanding separate vessels. They fought as a single consciousness operating thousands of bodies. The battle's turning point came when Engineer Ross revealed humanity's ultimate achievement. The aliens had expected kinetic weapons and stealth technology. They were not prepared for weapons that manipulated space-time itself. A section of the alien fleet simply folded in on itself. Ships compressed into impossibly small points before, winking out of existence. Another group found themselves scattered across multiple dimensions, their crews experiencing the terror of existing in several places at once. "What are they doing to us?" screamed Captain Moore as his ship began to stretch, like taffy. The answer came from Admiral Kane, who had remained silent throughout the engagement. "You wanted to see what humanity became during our imprisonment. We learned to treat reality itself as something that could be engineered." As the galactic fleet crumbled under impossible physics, human vessels moved among the wreckage not to destroy the survivors, but to rescue them. Medical ships appeared alongside alien vessels, offering aid to crews whose ships had been disabled rather than destroyed. "Attention all vessels," Stone broadcast across all frequencies. "This is Captain Stone of the United Earthship Titans, Wrath. Any ship that stands down will be treated with mercy. We are not your enemies unless you choose to make us so. The offer of mercy in the midst of overwhelming victory broke the spirit of the galactic fleet more effectively than any weapon could have. Ship after ship powered down their weapons and broadcast surrender signals. Admiral Rex sat in his command chair, staring at tactical displays that showed his mighty armada reduced to scattered debris and surrendering vessels. In less than an hour, humanity had accomplished what should have been impossible: the defeat of galactic civilizations combined. Military might. How? He whispered. The answer came from Admiral Kane as he materialized on Rex's bridge through a transportation technology that shouldn't exist. Because you were fighting the wrong war, Admiral. You came here to destroy us, to force us back, into our cage. But we weren't fighting to win a battle. Kane gestured toward the observation deck, where Earth hung in space like a blue jewel surrounded by the wreckage of alien ambition. We were fighting for the right to exist, to grow, to become something greater than what we were. That's a fight we can never afford to lose. The surrender ceremony took place aboard the Titan's Wrath, with representatives from every major galactic power formally acknowledging humanity's right to freedom. But Admiral Kane's terms surprised everyone who heard them. "We don't want your worlds," Kane announced to the assembled alien delegates. "We don't want your resources or your populations. We want something far more valuable: partnership." He activated a holographic display showing human colonies being established throughout the galaxy, not as conquests but as beacons of cooperation. Human medical technology healing alien diseases. Human engineering solving problems that had plagued civilizations for centuries. Human exploration vessels mapping new star systems alongside alien crews. The galaxy that once screamed in fear of humanity's arrival now has a choice. Kane continued. Grow alongside us. Learn from us as we learn from you, and together we'll build something neither of our species could achieve alone. The transformation began immediately. On worlds throughout the galaxy, human teachers worked alongside alien students. In research stations, human scientists collaborated with alien minds to unlock secrets of the universe. On trade routes, human ships protected alien merchants from pirates and natural disasters. The final scene played out on Earth itself, where alien children learned to play human games while human youngsters marveled at alien technologies. Ambassador Vale watched her own daughter laughing with human friends, speaking a language that mixed human words with Centauri concepts. "They terrified us," Vale said to War Chief Dex, who stood beside her observing the peaceful scene. "They still terrify me," Dex admitted. "But now I understand why. It's not their weapons or their technology. It's their refusal to accept limitations. They look at any barrier and ask not, how do we survive this, but how do we transcend this?" Above them, construction ships from a dozen different species worked together to build humanity's first interstellar university, where the greatest minds in the galaxy would come to learn and teach. The prison that had once contained humanity had become a bridge to the stars. The age of human dominance had begun not through conquest, but through the simple revolutionary idea that all intelligent life deserved the chance to reach its full potential. The galaxy had screamed in fear when humanity arrived. Now it sang with hope for what they might become together.